What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at the match between Liverpool and Manchester United in the English Premier League. Before we get into that, download the OneFootball app. There's a link in the description below. They're sponsoring today's video, and they've been a huge support to the channel and provide a free quality app for all fans of football. So whether it's staying up to date with your favorite team, with the matches coming up, or news, they cover it all. Leagues all across the world, from the biggest teams to the biggest leagues and biggest players. So that's me on your screen just scrolling through the app, showing you guys some of the features of the app. And again, the link is in the description, so be sure to check that out. It would help the channel greatly, and it's worth your while. Now also check out both my books are in the description as well, and check out Keyframe, a link in the description. It's how I'm making this video. Now let's get right into the tactics of the match. So Liverpool, they went with their usual build-up and absolutely dominated throughout the entire match. They ended the match winning 4-0, and from their initial build-up, their two central defenders were split by Alisson, which is nothing out of the usual for Liverpool, and Thiago would often drop deeper in the left half space to then offer a deep-lying playmaker and shorten connections between him and the first line of build-up. For Manchester United, they pressed Liverpool in an asymmetric 5-2-3 that saw Matic and Bruno Fernandes play alongside each other to then support the press. Then in the first half especially, we see Aaron Wan-Bissaka jumping to join the press and playing this right wing back role. He would then switch to the left wing back role, but with Aaron Wan-Bissaka jumping, this would allow Man U to then press with a back four and have more numbers into areas higher up the field to then try and dispossess Liverpool. The initial press for Manchester United was largely unsuccessful and often led to Liverpool progression higher up the field. So from here, Manchester United would drop into a 5-4-1, getting more compactness between their lines and having a higher presence in their last line of defense as well as in the midfield. So with their 5-4-1, they played very spatially oriented, which then allowed Liverpool to overload the space between the lines and look to progress the ball. Throughout almost the entire match, Thiago would drop into the left half space and pretty much dictate the entire game. This allowed Luis Diaz to then operate between the lines, often in the left half space higher upfield, and allow Andy Robertson to then occupy full width and height with this Liverpool team. Then we had the role of Jordan Henderson, often fading into the right half space, but having the mobility to then occupy different areas between the lines. Sadio Mane played as the central striker, often as a false nine, dropping between the lines, and then Mo Salah on the right, then varying his position as well, staying wider, in most cases allowing then Trent Alexander-Arnold into more dangerous spaces, whether that's a deep line playmaker or playing more attacking role between the lines. So with the amount of time Liverpool had on the ball, they were then able to only commit Thiago, Van Dijk, and Matip into their build-up, and allowing Matip to often progress via dribbling through the half space and allow more players to occupy space between the lines and overload the space between the lines, giving Manchester United a lot of trouble defensively. So in this picture here, we have then Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jordan Henderson, and Sadio Mane all positioned between the lines, whether in the center of the field or in the right half space. Trent Alexander-Arnold inverts off the right fullback position, allowing Salah to then hold the width throughout the team. Manchester United shift in their 5-4-1, leaving a lot of space on the weak side, and because of their spatially oriented low block, oftentimes the blindside movements of these players between the lines often went undetected, and Liverpool were still able to establish strong, meaningful, progressive connections going forward and break down Manchester United. So then in the second half, Manchester United went with a tactical change and went away from their back five into a back four and played a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-5-1, depending on how you want to look at it. They changed their shape to try and get more access in the midfield and to get more midfielders to jump through the half space to close that option down higher up the field. But this didn't work either. Now we have Thiago in the same role and Trent Alexander-Arnold now on the deeper right half space deep line playmaker role, with then Fabinho as the lone holding midfielder. So the big problem that came out of this tactical change was the jumping of the 8s for Manchester United. Now typically this wouldn't be a problem, but for Manchester United, the jumping of the 8s forced them to have more moments where they had to decide for themselves whether they should jump and stay. And because of Liverpool's rotations, with Thiago dropping deeper, Andy Robertson occupying height and width, and then Luis Diaz between the lines, with Thiago at the base of that, it offered a little bit of movement that forced Manchester United to think and change the way they press. But with the 8s jumping to players like Fabinho or Thiago, whether they were doing that at the wrong time or doing that too late, it would leave players like Luis Diaz free between the lines in more space than they had in the first half, because Manchester United tried to defend higher up the field. And also we have symmetry between the lines in this moment, with Jordan Henderson on the left pinning back Bruno Fernandes, with then Luis Diaz playing between the lines as the inverted winger on the left. And with the single striker, Matip was often allowed to then simply dribble and progress the ball into the midfield third around the lone striker of Manchester United. And the biggest problem for Manchester United was dealing with the numerical superiority Liverpool was able to create so easily throughout the match. So with Trent Alexander-Arnold deeper, even with Andy Robertson deeper as well, and Fabinho as a lone holding midfielder, but now with Thiago and Jordan Henderson occupying space higher up the field, it allows Fabinho to then become free, because both 8s were pinned by the Liverpool 8s. Bruno Fernandes and Jesse Lingard weren't able to jump to then occupy Fabinho, and with Rashford jumping as well, going to press Matip as the central defender, it leaves Fabinho completely free, who then benefits from the false 9, occupying Matic just off our screen here, pinning the 3 midfield players of Manchester United and allowing Fabinho to become free at the base of midfield. This was often the case, and oftentimes it wasn't just Fabinho becoming free, it was players higher up the field where more dangerous situations started to occur. Now, Manchester United in possession, they started with a back 3 that often saw Lindelof go wider and play in a right fullback role. From here, we would then see a 4-man midfield that consisted of 2 players occupying space higher up the field and through the half space. And we would have a double pivot at the base of this. And Matic was the player who had the most flexible positioning, often dropping deeper to the left or sometimes splitting central defenders. This would then try and look to manipulate the press of Sadio Mane in Liverpool's front 3. Often, Man U would also try and provoke the Liverpool 8s to jump to spaces higher up the field and create space between the lines to then play more direct. But Manchester United often played much more direct throughout the entire match and didn't establish any control in possession and generate any good chances. Now finally, we can see one instance of how Manchester United would look to play in behind. So we have our central striker positioning in a deeper area against the Liverpool 2 central defenders, with Jesse Lingard running through the half space and inside in the blind spot. Now the biggest problem with Manchester United's direct play in behind against this Liverpool back line was the location of where the pass was coming from and where the run was. So before we talk about that, we're just going to highlight the Liverpool 4-3-3 to give us a little more context. But now with the run being so narrow and the ball being played from such a central position, it provided with a very vertical action that made it very easy to defend against. Also, especially in the second half, the Manchester United shape was very poor in possession. We have the winger and fullback on the same vertical line without any movement, the 2 central defenders at the base of build-up, and not a lot of players between the lines. So just in this instance here, we can see no Manchester United players on the ball side of their attack occupying this dangerous space between the lines. And it wasn't a fluid movement either, where you would think a winger or a fullback would come in off the wing to then occupy this position or take advantage of this space. A lot of times their attacks were very stagnant and circulation would occur without intention. And this is where we're going to wrap up the analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.